The Me&Him podcast. Hey Dad, you made it back in one piece from Port Macquarie. Well done.
Well, it wasn't because the hot chicks were tearing me to pieces. It's because Qantas stuffed up big time.
Oh man, he had the worst debacle getting back from coming up to see me for Father's Day, which I thought was a pretty good effort. My dad flew up to see me for Father's Day, and I happened to have my daughter around and family and what have you. Had a massive weekend, and then he just flies the opposite way out of my town to Brisbane to get to Melbourne. And has actually turned up to this podcast. Dad, round of applause. Well done to you, sir. You still got it at 80.
Well, to be honest with you, beg your pardon, Marcello.
I said, it looks like you've poured yourself a glass of wine. Congratulations, mate.
There we go.
I poured myself a big glass of wine. I deserved it.
He did. Oh, I neglect to mention, sorry, I was so caught up in the fact that Dad actually made it in one piece, Marcello, that I forgot to actually introduce you. How are you, my friend? Marcello Colosimo from the Momento Hospitality Group. So good to have you and see you. And, mate, how are you?
I'm really good, Jace. Good to see you, mate. And we're in a good spot at the moment. What is it, 6:30 at night nearly? And
we've got wines?
Nice to be online with you both.
Have you got a beverage or?
I don't, just water at the moment.
Just
mate.
water, yeah, but he's probably on his fitness regime, Dad.
I don't know if
there's a man with discipline. I mean, you can't be a true wog if you're just drinking water, for God's sake.
We had enough yesterday for Father's Day.
Oh, did you for Father's Day? But that is discipline, right? Because you indulge, I got a photo of me and Dad. Dad's got 2 glasses of wine. He bought me I don't know, it was like a litre of Stella Artois or something for Father's Day.
Well, you did ask for it.
No, I just asked for a Stella. I didn't think I didn't get a litre.
I know, but I thought, well, it's a special occasion. You deserve something which, was half a barrel.
Well, you know what, and that's why I thought you guys should meet, all right? So this is why I wanted you and my dad to meet. I've spoken to you about him previously, right?
You have, very highly. You've spoken of your dad very highly.
Yeah, I told you got me into hospitality. Now, for those listeners that don't know who I'm interviewing, and this is the Me&Him podcast. I'm Jason, I'm me, and I have chats with my dad, candid conversations about manhood, the world, our lives, all this crazy stuff. His name's Matt, and he's the him in the equation. And then we're on season 2, and we're getting guests involved, people that are important to me, important to us, who have different perspectives on all of the above. And today I'm so lucky and happy to have Marcello Colosimo, my good friend and also long-term collaborator. What do you reckon? Is that fair?
I think it's very, very fair, mate.
Am I above my station?
No.
Yeah, you're above your station. You were just a bloody worker.
I know, yeah.
Keep it straight.
Another head count, another expensive head count.
Exactly.
They're in Memento. Mate, but look, we've worked together. So Dad, me and Marcello was actually, and his family were my first business-to-business customer when I started my business back in 90-something, 94. And I've worked with him since that time, 20 years. Is it 20 years? Or actually 30 years.
Maybe 20,
it's 30 years,
25 years, I think.
Oh, my God. Am I that old? Maybe I'm the 80-year-old.
Marcello, how the hell did you manage to put up with him for that long?
Oh, mate, well, the good part was he came and went a few times.
Oh, you got me, man.
It seemed to get better each time, Matt.
Yeah, that's right. They had enough. Everyone does that, though. We go through the rocket bursts, and then we jettison the, whatever it is. Anyways, here we are, and so Dad, I've known Marcello for a long time. March, that Dad and I have been doing this podcast, right?
Yep.
And we were chatting the other day, just catching up. I was down in Sydney, and we talked a little bit about family and stuff. And I asked you if you'd be on this podcast, and you graciously agreed. So, what made you go, hey, I'll do this. I'll spend a bit of time with Jason, his dad.
Well, when we were speaking at Bella Vista there, we were chatting about a couple of things, and and I was asking you about your kids, and you were talking about some highlights with them, and how good some connections were with them, then I started talking about my kids, and then you sort of said, oh, well, there's some really good things we're talking about. Would you like to talk about it on the podcast? And I said, yeah, for sure. And I'd talk about that with you. I think it's important. Obviously, I think kids. And the success of our kids is probably, one of our main goals in life and aims in life. And I think, you can be judged by a lot of things, and having good kids is something to be judged by and be proud of. And
good on you.
So the more we can help each other, the better.
Yeah. So Dad, he's just going straight to the heart of it, family, right? And you know what? We've spoken about this in a previous podcast. I worked out when I was 10, maybe it was 12, that we were put here to have kids, right? Like that's what we were here to. That's my life's mission. So having a kid and then raising a kid. I actually forgot about the second part at first because like having the kids was not too hard. It was actually raising them.
Well, it's a lot of fun at the beginning, but it changes dimension fairly quickly.
It does. So what I thought, Marsh, is that we could explore that if you're cool, with Dad. I've got a few things I'd like to capture on record with you, and having known you so long and know what you stand for. And this whole thing is about sharing ideas with others, people that are like us, that potentially get what we're trying to do here. And then I thought also it might be nice to talk a little bit about success and work and how you see that, if you're cool with that.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, because, that's what you're known for, right? You got a bunch of hotels, you got lots of businesses, you know what you're doing. And your philosophies on that, I think, they help stretch your brain a little bit, to just navigate, the world of business and what have you. So if you're cool with that, yes, Dad, he wants to interrupt.
So, Marcello, have you fused family with business to have a nepotism empire?
Actually trying to do the opposite, Matt. I'm actually trying to do the opposite. I actively encourage
keep them out.
Actively encourage
so you have some competent people to work with.
What I said, I'm giving them an opportunity to look for greener pastures.
Yeah, and you know what, Dad? Just context on that, and we can dig into this in the next section. But context on that is, Marcello came from, I think it was Macquarie Bank, weren't you? And you came back into the business?
Yeah, correct, yeah.
Yeah, and then as kids have been sort of working outside of the business with the option of coming in, what have you, and getting into legal and other things. So I think it's the right thing to do to let men fend for themselves, boys fend for themselves, discover their passions, discover their interests, look at how money's made, and then go into whatever works best. But I can tell you there is some sort of lineage going on, dude,
Yeah, I think that, I think when you're around something, Jace, I think you can develop a love for it even by osmosis. I think, but the idea with the kids is that, if they go, they learn, they study. The idea that they can just come into the business is probably not healthy for them or for the business. I think the idea.
Very true.
You want them to be able to actually add to the business, not just know what we know.
Yeah.
And the only way to do that is to
collect experience.
To experience other things,
yeah.
And even if you experience other ways to learn, and that
couldn't
way,
agree more.
Then you can come back and actually add to the business and create your own mark. Because, I think one of the biggest thing in any family business is you want the whether it's second generation or third generation to be able to leave their own mark and feel like it's theirs as well, not just feel like they're there because they're family, feel like they're there because they're succeeding in their own right. And I think that can create some longevity.
So good. Well, you skipped to the end real fast because that was business lessons I was going to say for later. But you've already fused family and business, exactly what Dad asked you to do.
That was Matt jumping in there, mate. He was telling
yeah, you rescued.
I'm sorry. Look, I've never grown up. That's my problem, Marcello.
Yeah, he's the bad influence. So you can hear all about that in the first season. But right now we've got bigger matters to attend to. We've got Marcello Colosimo on the podcast, and we're going to be taking a trip a little bit back into your background, to the family, stuff that I've seen and been involved with in the next section. So, Dad, you ready?
Yeah!
Buckle up!
Bring it on, pal.
There we go. The Me&Him podcast.
Marcello, it's lovely to meet you for the first time. Can you give me an idea of your heritage and your background, please?
Sure, Matt, sure. My father is Italian. He came out from Italy when he was 14. Came from Calabria, south of Italy, and came with his brother. His father had been in Australia for a couple of years to try and, as a lot of people back then, try and give the family a better life. Dad came out and sort of took that on board and tried really hard and worked from an early age and taught himself English by candlelight. Ended up duxing De La Salle Marrickville. Skipped a year of school and then went on to enter the service industry. So became a waiter and amongst other things, and he went across to Vegas as a croupier.
Wow!
And so he really jumped in and loved the hospitality space and loved serving wine in particular. Over a period of time, then he met my mother at a restaurant, and then they had me. And
excuse me for interrupting you. Was your mother Italian?
No, Mum's Australian.
Okay.
Yeah, but I suppose I'll talk a little bit about that. So Mum's Australian. Dad and Mum, that was 50 years ago when they had me, and they lived in a little caravan at the back of a shop in an area called Crestwood. Working in which they built a supermarket, a little sort of convenience supermarket, with the aim to get a bottle shop license approved in the Hills District. Dad did that, and Mum and Dad both worked 7 days a week for a lot of years.
There's your WOG story right there, Dad.
Yeah, I ended up watching Mum and Dad work very, very hard, and then they end up having 6 sons. So I was the oldest of 6 sons.
6 sons?
Yeah.
6 hermanos.
Yeah, 6 hermanos. So,
and where do you fit in the line?
I'm the oldest of the 6, Matt. So.
So you're the capo.
Yeah, so I and there's 4 years between me and my second brother, so I spent a fair bit of time watching Dad and Mum in those early stages and how hard they worked.
I saw Dad do that too, right? Like, work. I was cleaning nicotine stains off the pub ceiling at 12 years old, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, son.
That was illegal, isn't it?
You don't have to embellish the story.
Anyway, it sounded good on radio.
So I think I was lucky from a young age to sort of travel into work. Dad had after the bottle shop in Crestwood. Dad had a bottle shop at Chinatown, and I travelled, which was pretty much an hour and 20 minutes away from where we lived. And so he'd work 12-hour days, and he'd take me in the morning, on the weekends and school holidays. And so I spent a lot of time with Dad doing that. And then Mum essentially, we lived out in the Hills District of Sydney, and it was pretty isolated back then, a lot of farms and everything. And so Mum was, out there doing a lot of stuff with my brothers. And so we were really, really, I suppose, family orientated and watching our family orientation from a young age. On a Sundays, Dad would always go and visit his father. His father was still in Marrickville at that time. And so
that's where you get your value structure from, isn't it?
Without a doubt, I'm a very big believer. The role models that you see, you emulate a lot of. And I think that the idea of what not just what people say, but what they do is the most important thing. And I think if they're actually doing this,
that's values. You have to act them, right?
Yeah,
you have to do them.
Without a doubt. And I watched Dad, with his dad and his, for a long period of time. And every Sunday he'd go and visit, and it was always meal time for Sundays, and Sunday was family time. And I think that was a big part of that. And Mum bought into that. Even though Mum was Australian, she bought into that. And so Sundays became family days.
Yeah,
and,
nice.
And that was a pretty.
I know a few families like that.
Pretty important.
We see my mum wasn't from a Mediterranean heritage as my dad was, and she became part of it too. It was an acclimatization process, but like you, I watched them struggle and work hard, and I learned their values. And one of the values that I learned was, although we were very poor in the 50s, and the 50s weren't the time when people would drop in at night unexpectedly. It was completely different social ethos those days. But we always had to have something in the fridge just in case somebody called, so that we would be able to give them a meal and of course some wine to drink. Otherwise, we would feel that we had let them down, even though it was unexpected and it was a surprise. And that stuck with me right from the beginning. And that's where my whole hospitality thing came from.
Yeah, I think definitely breaking bread is, with someone is probably one of the biggest signs of respect, and cooking for someone that's similar. Yesterday was Father's Day, and my wife and I cooked for our whole family, all my brothers and dad. There's 35 of us with all the kids, and
only 35. I like that.
Small family.
I can't cook for one. I can cook for 20, but cooking for one is a real challenge.
Yeah, I had a lucky, Matt. I was only doing the proteins, mate. My wife had all the hard work. She had to do the rest.
Yeah. Did you smoke anything much?
No. I did some.
Son, you're talking about food now.
No, but I'm saying, because that takes preparation. If you just slept on a few steaks, I'm not that impressed, right?
No,
come on. It's how you do the 50 steaks.
It's the marinade
simultaneously.
Yeah. That's true. Okay. Sorry, March. You were saying.
Apologies.
Yeah. That's all right. No, so we did some slow cooked pork the day before.
Yes.
Yes.
Very nice beef and some lamb on the toast.
Right, that would have been the bit. I reckon I could have been an adoptive son on that gathering, because I love just hanging with you guys. I'm just it feels like part of the family. So, Dad, just to zoom out a little bit here, more recent terms, I've worked with Momento Hospitality, or more recent times, and for about probably 5 years, it's been 30 years, right? But the last 5 or 7 years, quite active in terms of helping them establish a company ideology and embed it, and then do different sorts of work, and then eventually working as an employee to help them sort of take it to where they wanted to go. And
I know that, son.
Yeah, and I'm again not trying to take any credit here, but from my little bit, I was part of this picture, and to see it go from 3 or 4 hotels to 12, I think it was, March, plus all the other businesses that were created. I've got to say, so impressed with your, what you were able to do in that period of time, and what you're still doing, and it's just going to another level, even though I've sort of stepped out, for some time. But do you want to talk about where, because Daz just brought up hospitality. Do you want to talk about what your belief in hospitality is, and why you've done what you've done? Because that's a huge driver.
Excuse me for interrupting here. I was talking about hospitality as a driver.
Yes,
as
that's exactly what I just asked March, Dad.
You've absorbed from your parents and becomes part of your being.
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you for the clarification, March. If you could please answer the question I asked.
I think the idea of serving people became something that I watched Dad do, and watching him serve wine and sell wine in the bottle shop, and then establishing a single pub, and then other hospitality venues. So, from a hospitality point of view. From a pub point of view, obviously we see pubs as being a centrepiece of the community. I think they're essential to the fabric of the community. I agree.
The old public houses, right? We used to have meetings and make government decisions.
I think that's that's exactly right. I think they're as essential as a library, as coffee shops, as parks, as really everything like that. Places for people to meet and enjoy themselves and enjoy company, I think, are very important. So that's how we try to look at it. And essentially, we I think, as you know, Jace, we our purpose was to enable our customers to create memories. Mm-hmm. And
we've got to talk about this with Dad too. Yeah, but sorry, keep going.
From our point of view of being able to develop spaces and service that allows customers to always look back and smile at those occasions.
Love that.
Whether
Yes.
it's whether it's a
That's very true, and I've done that too. Not to the successful degree that you have, but as a driver, the motivation to ensure the customer is looked after in a satisfying way not only builds the business, but it makes you feel good inside too.
For sure. I mean, we've since Jason was doing a lot of our training and developing our training systems. We had a couple of new people come in, and we've been speaking to them about what we want to see for our expectations for our teams. And one of them was and Dad sort of obviously played a big part in this is looking at ways to say yes to the customer, looking at ways to make them happy, looking at treating people and this is a big one, always treating people how you want to be treated. If you can do those sort of things, then you create a competitive advantage because people don't want to look elsewhere. They want to come to where they feel safe, and they feel happy and they feel like they're served and in a respectful way, but also in a fun way and one that they're amongst friends.
It's kind of like an expanded home.
Without a doubt.
It's what you do at home with your friends and your family, and then you just expand it into a much wider dimension, and it resonates with people.
And the key to that, obviously, and this is where I get interested, is in the system that makes that sustainable, right? Because it's one thing to sort of have a family business in March, when you were going from like 1 or 2 or 3, you had momentum and energy, and you're going to go to more. As soon as you leave a bit of attention, you stop giving one place attention, you give it to another. There's an immediate kind of, not implosion, but the business sags, and you've got to prop it up with people who are the right people who are going to keep that energy going when you move on to the next one. And then to get the next one, 5, 10, 20 plus sideline businesses. How do you keep, what systems, what's your secret to sort of leveraging yourself like that?
Well, I think Jace, you were part of that success, but I think the way we looked at it is if I had a problem, we'd try and solve it, but try and solve it once so that then it could be replicated. So we'd always look to use technology to be able to replicate whatever
to a system.
So the idea of us being able to say, okay, well, whether we videotape it and put it on our learning management system, so that then it becomes part of how we do things going forward, or whether we develop another system like with a compliance system, so that things are checked and the checks and balances are there without someone having to remember to do it.
So you're taking a human factor out and you're just making a sustainable system. You teach people the system.
That's what we're trying to do, and the system, so that the staff are doing what they do best, which is serving the customers, rather than worrying about the back of house stuff. The back of house stuff's very important, and it needs to be there. But
so that comes down to culture, right?
Essentially, we want them looking after the staff, and essentially.
And what I heard, March, and I don't know what you think about this, but you should treat your staff as your number one customers, right?
Yeah.
And also that customers treat staff treat their customers the way that their bosses treat them as well.
I think so, for sure. I think, Steve Wynn always said, you give me the best staff and the second best venue, and I'll win every time.
Yeah.
It's not about the best venue; it's about the best staff, and
it is about the personal interaction.
Yeah,
that individual, each eye glance, each smile, each sort of whatever it is, nice word, can instantly secure.
Well, we're looking to really pulling apart our purpose and our vision and our values at the moment, and to be able to create that environment where customers' expectations are blown away, and but to do that we need to create the environment for our staff to be able to
absolutely.
To now, that's a big part. So the job of the senior leadership team is to create that environment, and my job is to really hire the right people and then get out of their way and let them do their job.
Well, you do good at that, mate. There's a lot of empowerment going on in that organisation, and there was one particular value that I helped shoehorn into your set of values, and I had to do a justification session, right? So I presented it to all the senior managers, and I was like, there's this thing I want to bring up called think above the line, all right? And they're like, oh, it sounds good and everything, but you got to present to March to see if he signs off on it. And I'm like, all right. So I prepare, for a few hours, get this presentation together, so take them through this whole process. In the end, he goes, you can add it, whatever, whatever. But the problem is, of course, March, as with all values, like think above the line, I'd always ask people, what do you think? And I'll ask Dad now, Dad, what do you think above the line means?
To be honest with you, son, it sounds false and glitzy.
I knew you were going to say something to denigrate me.
No. Look, there are so many ways. The English language has so many permutations. You can take positive and negative meanings from anything.
Well,
it needs to be explained.
Yeah, exactly. So it was too complex, right? So I spent a whole bunch of time.
It wasn't too complex.
No, not for you.
Too glib.
Yeah, too glib doing it. But for the staff and for the listeners, think above the line. The way that we explain that is when you are thinking above the line, you're taking accountability, ownership, and proactive stance. When you're thinking below the line, you're being somewhat of a victim, and you are blaming others and saying it's not nothing I can change and what have you. And so being above is always better. To your point, Dad, they didn't really get it unless it was fully trained to them. But I think, March, it still typifies the attitude that you get as an entrepreneur, someone who's trying to create little mini entrepreneurs. How many entrepreneurs have you created, like in your time? People have spun off their own businesses thanks to your, assist and systems.
I don't know the exact number, but there's plenty, Jace. I mean, there's so many people already running pubs around Sydney that have been with us, but two, so many that have started their own businesses. And I think that there's nothing better than watching someone succeed. And if you can help them a little bit on that journey, I think that's amazing. And I think for us, I think that's that old thing, Jace. You'd really rather have trained staff, and if they leave, than untrained staff that stay, right? And so, whatever we can train them, and if they can be with us, and then
they do come back anyway.
Yeah, well, so many times people do come.
Yeah. I've seen them. Please, Marcello, I was wrong. I love you guys.
It's not the idea that it was wrong. It's just, I think that some people do that for that reason, Jace, where they think the grass is greener, but a lot of people come but
everyone needs to grow, like you're saying, even your family, right?
Yeah, and if you've got a good relationship with them, and you know that the biggest thing is if they've got honesty, integrity, and if they've got that, they can learn everything else.
So, Dad, if these aren't on the values of a Memento, but honesty, integrity, this guy and his family are that they're my highest order when it comes to values.
That's lovely, but I agree with Marcello. Honesty and integrity are the foundation stones of any walk in life. Yes.
So how do you lay those foundation stones? So I think this is a perfect segue to talking about raising kids, raising sons, raising boys, some of the thoughts you have, Marcello, if you're open to share them, which I know you are because you said you're open to share them. So why don't we move into that area now and let's talk a little bit more about kids.
Sure.
The Me&Him podcast. Well, we've covered some really cool ground talking about business and background and exotic, countries and all the rest. Now we're in Australia and we're raising kids. And now I must, from my own admission, I've moved from New Zealand to Australia, traveled the world, came back and decided this is a perfect place to have a family. Like, oh my God, like I'm going to grow roots here, and bring my kids up here and they'll do better than me. Like I grew up in a sort of fairly impoverished, suburb or inner city suburb of Auckland. And to be able to be near the beach, like raising my kids, I'm like, this is good for them. All right. So one of the best decisions I think I ever made was moving my kids to where I moved them to so they could grow up there. So I'm setting this up because we're going to be moving into raising kids, raising boys, and March, one of the reasons we just mentioned earlier was I loved speaking to you about that subject when we chatted briefly at Bella Vista Hotel. So I wondered if I could maybe throw to you first and then just talk to me about your philosophy in terms of raising boys, what's important, and then potentially some tactics. I know Dad's going to have some questions as well, but figured you kick it off because kind of why I asked you to come on, I guess.
Sure. Thanks, Jace. So I've got 3 boys. Currently their age is 23, 21 and 17. I'm lucky enough to have a beautiful, supportive wife who's been a fantastic mother. When we were talking about having kids, we sort of spoke about how we'd want to raise them. And I think that was pretty important at the start. Some expectations about discipline,
So not just about, hey, let's have a kid. It's what are we going to do? How are we going to raise those kids?
I think so, because,
Wow.
you'd rather talk about it before things are a surprise. And, I mean, some of the stuff we thought and we argued about before we had kids didn't eventuate. And, she always thought that she'd never use physical discipline for the kids, and then she sort of sold that pretty early on.
That soon changes, doesn't it?
Oh, it's funny.
And I watched what I was like. Had 5 brothers, and they were younger brothers, and I had a fantastic mother and father, and I watched the way we were raised, and I think I said to you before, Jason, you try to look to say, well, what was the best parts about what we were, how we were raised, and how can I try and make it a bit better, if you can, or
Yes.
what are some of the and we actually thought about it, and really thought, a few things. And
That's a good partnership, though, right?
I think so, and I think a couple of the things where we were pretty lucky is we agreed that we really wouldn't, like, as with the boys, we always, like, I never tried to treat them or spoke to them like they were little babies. I spoke to them like they were boys, and I think that, I never treated them like that they weren't anything but, boys that were going to be men, and so from, there was some expectations around what you'd call, tolerables and some intolerables, and then one of those was that they always got to respect their mum, and they can never speak bad to.
Absolutely 100% correct.
Yeah.
You only have one mother, and that's what I've said to my children. I can fend for myself. Well, that's when I could fend for myself. That's changed since. But I've always said, respect your mother. It's very important to her, and it's important to you. And just do a couple of things for me here and there, because those days I was Superman. And you can remember back, Marcello, we were all bloody Supermen once. And I wanted them to look after their mother.
Yeah, 100%. And then so I never allowed them to ever speak to her with disrespect. And then
Correct.
So one of the things I always thought early was you always got to do what you say you're going to do. You can never say you're going to do something.
Oh, I taught this one to Cormac too.
Yeah, and then not do it, because then what happens is little kids are like little puppies. If they think they can get away with something, they'll get away with it.
Yeah, I mean, that's core principle.
So you need to have dogs before you have kids, is that what you're saying?
No,
It helps. You don't have to, but it helps.
I just think the idea that
Drown the puppies. Oh, actually, no.
Hang on.
Maybe the other way around.
Well, at the end of the day, look, I think it's puppies train a lot of people, and kids train other
totally.
Yes.
And I think
They're a good exercise in responsibility, no doubt.
if you allow the boundaries to be pushed, they don't stop. They keep going. So I think the idea of if there's consequences, there's consequences, and if you're not willing
I love that.
If you're not
Consequences, yes.
If you're not willing to do that, you shouldn't say it. That's my view.
Yeah, I failed at that a couple of times, and then I started getting it together, and then the kids got better. It was amazing. I just need one strategy. I wish I'd got those at school.
Yeah. And I think, Matt, as you and Jace, you were the same. Like, when you work hard, you got to make sure that when you're with them, you're present.
Yes.
And I think,
yes.
God.
I think that's super.
That's so hard, March.
It is, but I think you watch mums be selfless. Dad's got to be selfless as well. And I think
what? I remember learning maybe 15 years ago. There's a book by Blair Singer called Sales Dogs, and it said, there's no time management. Time is like a pendulum that swings wildly one way or the other way. Just be on the pendulum. If you're at home, be at home, and if you're at work, be at work. And I needed to hear that to know what I was doing wrong. Because I was always feeling guilty about not being at home because I was working, and always feeling like I should be working when I was at home, which I did. I worked till midnight most nights. That's a tough balance. How do you manage that?
One of the things I was around. I was lucky enough to be in an organisation called the Executive Connection when I was younger, and before I sort of had kids, and just when I started having kids, and it was literally a group of older executives, so I was learning from them. And one of the things that one of them said to me one time was, you have to switch off your mind, and whatever that is, whether it's closing the gate on your front gate or opening your front gate.
Opening the gate. I've heard that one. Go past your letterbox.
Pick a leaf off the tree or anything like that, when you're home. Then
and don't forget to take the rubbish out.
Yeah. You train your mind to think like that. And then clearly
have you heard that guy, I think it was Chris Helder, or no, one of the speakers talked about the third space between being somewhere and being somewhere else, and the way to manage that middle transition zone where you need to reconcile what you've just done, get present and set an intention for the next stage is almost like you're planning sort of ahead and looking at life in sections. What's your philosophy on that? Is that part of it?
I don't know about the plan, the next day. I think that can happen, when the kids are in bed. You can do that. I think you can do.
Right.
You're
just 100% there.
You got to be there. I think if you're thinking about what's next and that, then you're not. I mean, you got to think that the mum, if they're at home, their job is that, and they've never finished that. So when you come home, you got to make sure. Like I felt like I had to make sure that she felt appreciated, and acknowledged, and then also had a little bit of a break, and you got the time with the kids. Now, if you got work to do, it's easy to do after the kids have gone to bed.
Totally. So be there 100%.
But
take the kids.
The idea of sitting at a table with no TV, no phones, and just having a conversation, and even if the kids are little and
But now we move into the teenage zone where you can't put them to bed and make sure that they stay there. And you can't park them like you can when they're 5, 6, 7 years old. And I mean park nicely, because you love your children and you constantly worry about them, and you check to make sure that they're okay. But once they become teenagers, there's a different sort of training element involved.
I think it's got to start from the early starts, but Matt, I think the difference when they're a bit older is just the same philosophy that you tell them, okay, I'm going to be here till 8 o'clock and then I've got some work to do. I've got to be here till 9 or 7 or 6 or whatever it is, and actually having that conversation with them. But I think one of the things that when I spoke to Jace about a couple of things that we did for tradition-wise to try and
just to lay that foundation.
To lay the foundation.
Because this is where I wanted to go, mate. You talked about rituals, that you, and I thought this was very interesting.
I think one is obviously it was family, right? So it was around the concept that
Sunday dinners.
Family is the most important thing.
Okay.
And looking after each other's, and their mum is the most important
and the concept
thing.
of mutual respect.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So we, the idea of being able to sit at a table, I think, and eat is super important. And I made sure no matter what time you came home from work on a Saturday night, we'd have Sunday breakfast together. And I'd cook Sunday breakfast, and they could have whatever, we'd literally put everything on cake.
You probably finished work and went home and cooked breakfast.
Cakes and pancakes and, bacon, eggs, sausages.
Well, I would have.
Yeah, I know. My dad used to do that. He'd be like, I stayed up for 48, 72 hours. I'm like, Dad, that's not something to be proud of. You could have a heart attack. Just relax.
You see, so I can't be proud of the fact that even now I'm 80, I
know.
I've done
survived 12.
7 40-hour stretches this year.
Yeah. So March, just so I can clarify here. So would you get home late, get a few hours sleep, go home, and then just cook brekkie and just make sure family was together?
Yeah, exactly.
Can I add one thing to that?
Yeah.
That is the sacrifice that men make to make others. That's the service we provide. I'm not saying women don't do it, but that is so important to us. I've driven to fucking Sydney to pick up my boy, picked him up in 5 minutes, driven back for a 10-hour round trip so I could see him for 2 days. That's a sacrifice. I think, I don't know if this is where, why you do it, what your driver is. For me, just hearing you will do that, it's like I need to look after my own sort of thing.
Yeah, I think it's definitely that. But I think it comes back to that point, Jace, that you're a role model and you have to show the example, not talk about the example. So if you expect your kids to make sacrifice, you have to show it. It's that simple.
You have to be it.
And they exactly, man. And they
otherwise they can't see it.
And then, but they acknowledge it a lot more when they're older, Jace, than they do when they're younger. Because when they're younger, it's an expectation. When they're older, they realise it's an exception.
Well, it sets them up for 50 years, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, look after me now so I don't have to learn the lesson when I'm 30. When I'm 30, I've got 3 fucking kids. I've been divorced, all the rest. Dad, what did you do? Seriously, you could have done a lot better.
But I think.
Well, son, we didn't have a chance to have that conversation at that time.
Don't worry much.
You were about 3.5.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
So the idea of being around a table and then that creates opportunity for conversation.
Totally.
Which conversations, questions and conversations lead to learning experiences.
Well, you see, Marcello, pardon me for interrupting you. This is what sparked off this whole podcast between Jason and myself, was the fact that I'm the oldest and the last in the line. And there are things that I really need to communicate to my family and his family, his children, my grandchildren, etc. And unless we did something about it, which could document the family history and the trials and tribulations of my dad and my granddad, they wouldn't know.
Which in a way, March, is making up for the community that we've lost, right? So one way to hold community is hold it through family and extended family. Like that's the core of the community, right? Then you get your branches into your neighbours, you get all the rest of it. I know that's imbued in your DNA, mate. I know it because you love the fucking guys next door. You work in the business down the road because, you work out a deal with them. You look after them. Everyone's like family, right? So you obviously can't give everyone mates rates, but at the same time, you got to feel like they're all family. That's why you're going to look after them.
Hey, giving them some of your love is better than mates rates.
Totally, yeah. That's
Always.
the value. That's the value. So, mate, we talked about rituals, sitting at the table, breaking bread. What kind of things would you ask them or do? What specifically? I'm interested.
Well, I'll go through a couple of them. A few of them. One of the things we did when they were old enough, we literally said, let's live by a code. I'm a big believer that everyone needs to have a code, personally, and I think the family needs to have a code. Now, that code is essentially a set of rules that you live by, so that if the idea with integrity is doing the right thing when no one's watching. So the idea of the code is that they can refer back to that for the right thing when no one else is around, and it's sort of a
it's a self-teaching mechanism, right?
And the signpost for judgment, So the idea that we asked the 3 boys and me and Jenny to write something.
So you're co-created it together. Yeah. That's crazy. That's something so good.
We wanted to live
Not
by.
Dad going, here's the code.
No, because when I said they could write.
I never did that, son.
I know.
You should have learned a lesson long time ago.
Yeah, he was very much a dictator, March. So
we said, if whatever they write down, we all have to live by, and then we had a couple each.
Yeah.
And then out of those couple, we were left with we decided and voted on 6.
Oh, so good.
So that was one, and then that's up on the fridge, and essentially when anything sort of moves away from the center of that code, the questions get asked about, and they've got to explain it.
Good.
I love this. This is like so fascinating. It's almost like a recipe. I'm not saying necessarily for success in all things, but certainly for aware action.
Well, I think that's awareness is probably another one that we did, Jace. We had a thing on the Sunday that we'd have an award, and we'd call it the Colosimo Cup, and it was literally a trophy, and it was like the old Player of the Week trophy, and it had the Colosimo Cup written on it, and the person that won it got to keep the trophy in their room for the week.
Right. Cool.
They had to nominate someone else for the trophy and the reason why. And,
So it moved on their nomination.
and the point about it was
But you're stimulating thought and discrimination's the wrong word.
Discernment.
Discernment. Mm-hmm. Yes.
well, it's also gratitude for what other people are doing, and they acknowledge what
Yes,
someone else
yes.
is doing.
Is an external focus, external locus of control, right? Oh, actually, maybe that's...
Okay, so
Sorry.
The word for that is acknowledgement.
Yeah, I think the acknowledgement and then the ability to be able to see, because sometimes even with siblings you get caught in thinking about what people are doing wrong rather than what they're doing right.
Yeah.
And I think the
Little things done
idea
right.
of this is they have to say something that they've done right. And,
So that's where your energy goes, right?
Yeah.
Into all the good stuff. So
I
you're
think
feeding
so.
each other like batteries.
and then they had to say at that same time, and everyone had to answer, and there was no getting away from not answering. That was unacceptable, right? So they had to answer what was
I don't feel like it.
what was the best thing that happened to them in the week, and what did they learn? What was one of the things they learned during the week? And
I love that.
and just
I asked that to my daughter.
just
What was the best thing about
concept of
today at the end of the day? Just to get her thinking about what she liked the most.
Yeah, I think the concepts of just having to actually stop and think about it, rather than think in a different or a bad way, or not even think. It's so easy these days not to
It's
think.
just don't even acknowledge it.
So that was a Sunday, which I thought was pretty important. I mean, some of the other good traditions we did, I'd give them their birthday day off. And the reason I'd give them the day off is that I'd give them a choice to be able to choose, if they wanted to go to a movie or they wanted to go to a lunch. And they could pick where they wanted to go to lunch if they picked a lunch. Now, obviously, when they were younger, they always chose the movies, and the older they got, they always chose the restaurants. And they remember those experiences with it was just me, their mum, and them. And, they were the centre of the attention.
Yeah,
It was about
totally,
them. And
I get it.
and it was acknowledgement for them that it was, and we talked about how much we loved them, but what they did well and what they're going to work on, And I was a pretty big believer, Jace, as you know, like we've done a lot of it in setting goals. The start of each year, they had to give me goals. The start of each holiday, they had to give me a holiday plan. And the idea was not, they could write whatever they wanted. I just wanted to plan it.
Just have some intention.
Exactly that. They could write down, I want to spend 5 hours a day playing with my mates.
So March, Dad, what March is saying, and he's very good at this and far more practiced than I am, is thoughts are things and choose the good ones, right? Like choose the good ones in advance and then let them help create your direction and your world. Right? I mean, but you're just a lot sharper and more strategized than I am.
That's incredibly wise, and very few people are that wise.
Most people think life's happening to them, right? They're not pushing the other way.
Yeah.
While you were talking, Marcello, it reminded me of a client of mine when I was doing my exotic transport business. Exotic in the terms of emergency for oil and gas. She was younger than me, but we had a rapport, and I just mean rapport in the nice business sense. And I was talking to her one day, and she said to me that when she was young, and that she was one of 3 or 4 children, the parents insisted that at breakfast every morning, each child had to come to breakfast with an original poem. Now that blew my socks off.
I didn't know what to expect then. I thought with your socks up high, or I don't know.
No, Jason, you tone your weird mind down.
No, I'm just thinking like dress well. So I got so March. Is that where you? Is that?
No, it's different to what March did. They're totally different spectrums.
I know, but is that the same?
One is creative and artistic. The other is sensible and functional and practical. Both are right, but they're in different dimensions of life. And these children learned, because their parents were artistic, to come to the breakfast table every morning with an original poem. And they became intensely creative as a consequence.
It works the muscle.
Well, I think creativity is pretty important, Matt. I think you know, when you look back in history and you think, as I said, if you try and learn and just everyone just tries to improve a bit, we should all get better. You know, each generation should get, you know. But if you look in history and you look and say what, you know, aristocracy used to do, without a doubt, culture was a big part of people's learnings. You know, and not just
it always has been.
And then if you talk, there's
culture and community.
Culture, community. You talk about physical exertion, so some sort of sport. In a way, and some sort of team sport, because I think team sport.
Well, action is creating, like you're saying, like you've got to be physical.
I think team sports.
I love the word team.
Yeah, team sports for young men, I think, is super important.
Yes. Oh.
I think because it teaches you resilience, it teaches you failure, it teaches you
community.
Teaches you community, teaches you
well, they also have to learn discipline, behaviour,
working for other people,
all sorts of skills.
Others, yeah.
You know, I think that you know they're all lessons that I think are essential. You know, so the idea that you cannot do it is well, you know, I didn't accept that. The idea that, you know, if you read a lot of books and or watch a lot of things, that, you know, I like the idea of intense training in a period of time to get the skills better, you know, and so whatever that is, whether it's, you know, there's a book called, I think it's The Sports Gene, and they talk about the idea that you know, if you do, you know, 100 hours of training is one thing if you do it an hour a day for an hour a week for 100 weeks. But if you do that in a 3-week or 4-week or 5-week period, the skills just skyrocket. You know, so the idea of doing that sort of thing was something that we did with the boys a fair bit. You know, whatever they did, we did it intensely.
Just to level up
for that period of time, you know, and then there was other things, and there were certain things that we wanted to. One of the biggest regrets I had was not getting the older two into music. I thought that would have been a really good thing to do.
Have you heard my latest songs? our latest songs?
No, don't listen to his songs, for heaven's sake.
I'm still work in progress.
You're trying to stimulate your son.
Yeah, the youngest one plays guitar, but I think the older two would have been good for them. I think.
My daughter's starting to play the piano, and she's 8.
Yeah,
so,
I think,
and she's already singing, and I'm like, go for it, darling. Like, it's amazing to see them just take to that stuff at such a young age.
But you think about that, Jason. Also, you think about communication, which is, I think, what Matt was talking about with his friend and the daughter talking. Writing the poem was one part of it. Communicating it and speaking it in front of others was a big part of it as well.
Yeah, the artistic expression.
You know, I think that is very, very important concept to be able to stand up and speak.
You've got to be brave, right?
Yeah.
You know,
you're overcoming.
And in a sense, it's standing up and delivering, even if it's to family, but it's to an audience of something that
where you might fail,
you have created, and you know that you will be judged kindly, because in future life you're going to have to do this in business meetings and so forth. So why not learn it when you're young?
It's much easier, you know, debating or anything like that, man. It's the same type of concept, you know, public speaking.
Precisely.
One of the things, Jace, we did was that idea that we didn't do pocket money, and the currency was, you know, reading books, you know, and then there was benefits, you know, and summarising the books, you know.
I love that.
Or listening to podcasts. There was no. You couldn't just say you read it. You actually had to give me a summary, Jenny a summary.
So he actually homeschooled on top of private school. That's an investment.
This was obviously before AI.
I reckon you've got an AI decryptor, March. Like you run it through the scanner.
Where everyone is a professional cheat now.
Yeah, you're right. But I think the idea of them learning what we know in a much shorter period of time is, you know, it's a great gift to give someone.
March, I got to tell you, the next 50 years are going to be beautiful to watch, my friend. Just to see these men start to soar, because you've given them cruising altitude, right? Yeah. You know, it's all the energy has to go on the way up, and once you hit that zone, that peak speed, then you can throttle back a little bit, right? And you hit but to get them off to there, it takes all the energy of mother and father, everything.
I think so, Jay. So I think I think I told you one of the things I did do with my oldest. I didn't do it with the other two. Was I took him to that Making of Men camp.
Yes, that's right.
Arnie Rubenstein. So you know the idea that camp was that most societies, apart from this one, current one, had an initiation from
It's crazy, isn't it?
boyhood to manhood.
There must be a reason for it.
There must be, and I think that was something that sort of came to mind about that. So essentially, then after that, with my other two, I took them on trips, not the same type, but something for them, for the acknowledgement of sort of moving into manhood, but that book, only that Making of Men is
Making of Men. I'll link it in the podcast show notes for sure. Look, I know it's getting on here. And Dad, you've survived how many hours now of travel? Like
About 150.
It feels like 100. That's dog years. It was only probably 5, but you've done well to rock up and show up. March, I could keep talking for hours as we do, but I know you've got your family and you've got your own stuff to attend to. Maybe if we could just ask one question each, Dad, that we think would be, valuable to both us and to anyone listening. Do you want me to start, or do you got one in mind?
You like speaking, son. Go for it.
So if there's one thing that you've learned about yourself through all the hardship, like one lesson that has burnt through all the rest, that's sort of almost made you become the man you are, like what was the hardship, and then what was the lesson you got out of that? When
I was younger, I suppose in business, you mean, Jace? Is that
your choice. Like we all look, the strongest steel is forged through the hottest fires, right? Mm. So sometimes the hottest fires are personal, sometimes they're business, sometimes they're both.
Sure. I think for me the business one was the GFC all those years ago.
Yeah.
Very good lessons from there, and then after that, I wrote myself notes to learn from. And I think that, and there was a whole bunch of notes on risk and exposure and.
So when you say it was painful, without going into detail, how close was it to the bone during GFC for you?
It was more the fact that I was looking after the business and things were taking out of your control through through something that happened to American home mortgages,
gotcha.
And all of a sudden, things just stopped.
But then with COVID, right? Did that help you with COVID?
Of course it did, yeah. And so the lessons you learned from that, really allowed us to shine. And I thought we did shine in. You were around then, Jason. I thought we all did shine in COVID. I thought that business was a leading example for what to do in.
Mate, no wonder it was under such good stewardship, because I didn't know the GFC was what gave you.
Yeah.
That.
Essentially, those lessons you learned from there. Came and I loved reading that book. I think we spoke about it when. Giuliani after the September 11, and
Secret Service
treated every day like a war room, and he had the essential services around, and then they sorted out what they did, and they led, and that recovery and what New York became after that was a beacon for leadership, and I think that. Some of those lessons we probably implemented because of the hardship we had earlier on, and then we learnt those lessons and really took control of the situation and went away from being a victim to being quantifying the downside and which I think is really important, because it puts your mind in a place to sit there and say, okay, you quantify the downside, now work on solutions.
Love it. Yeah, cover your weaknesses. Double down on the strengths. Mate, that was amazing, Dad. That gave me plenty of time to think of a good question. So, what do you got?
It's a summary. Listening to Marcello, I've realised, and we all tend to forget things which we know, but fundamentally, forming the gladiators of tomorrow starts today.
Yeah. So that's it. You're trying to just go out.
Just drop the mic there, Matt.
Drop the mic.
Yeah. Don't embarrass me. I'm too old for that.
Well, look, I tell you what, in some degree, you actually did a pretty good job encapsulating it. I remember Jerry Seinfeld saying, I'll take a 4-word joke and spend 4 days bring it down to 3 words, like sometimes less is more. So, March, mate, it's been so great to chat to you and hear a little bit more about your story and just come on with my dad and I, because I know I've spoken about,
Yeah, he does speak very highly of you, Matt.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I really do appreciate it. I think it's an honour to have talked with you, and through the medium of being able to see each other.
Zoom, the virtual studio.
It's good because it feels like a real conversation.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I agree. And for those that I don't share that many YouTube clips, but I do capture some bits of the conversation. March, if you're cool, I might reclip a couple of these things out the YouTube. I'll make sure you know about it. You can approve it. Send it to your secretaries. Do what you got to do.
Well, he's better looking than me. I can tell you that.
Yeah. Dad, I don't know if I can work with the Photoshop. It only has its limits.
Thank you, son. Thank you.
Hey, March, so please say hi.
Remind me you just inherited you.
Please say hi to your wonderful father, Rosario. I really respect him, and that's one of the reasons I want to invite you on, because I got to know you first. And can I tell you one last story just before we duck out of this? When I first started working as a contractor, like after I came back from the US for you guys, and then I met your dad. And I'd seen him around, but I hadn't actually spoken to him, right, that much. And then I said, hey, look, Ross, I'd love to catch up with you at some point, learn a bit about how you started the business. And I had a few meetings on, right? And he goes, yeah, why don't you come in right now? I'm like, I can't right now because I've got some meetings on. I'm like, that's probably not a good start to the conversation. I should have asked him if I had no meetings.
Yeah. Like you should have been honest and say, I can't come right now because I can't cope.
Well, anyway, so he's like, no, that's cool. So anyway, a couple of days later, I'm like, hey, Ross, sorry about the other day. He goes, oh, you free right now? I'm like, yes, I actually am. Anyway, he sat me down and I asked him a few questions about how he got started. He told me some of the story you told me. And I was like, here's a gentleman who's running a business, a multi-million-dollar, beautiful big company, and he has the time to stop for some new bloke who's interested in how he got started. I got the honesty, I got the integrity, I got the family, all from that. And man, I love you guys. Fucking Colosimos rule. Thanks so much for coming on, March, and thanks for sharing some ideas.
Even though it's virtually, we'll catch up for a drink soon. See you guys.
Lovely to have met you, Marcello.
Thanks, Jace.
See you, mate. The Me&Him podcast.
Son, it was really nice to meet Marcello and to hear his wisdom. Very successful, very wise man.
Yeah, totally.
And coming from a tradition, a Mediterranean, an Italian tradition.
Isn't that opposite Yugoslavia? Oh, opposite the old Yugoslavia?
Fundamentally, yes.
It's all connected, right?
Italy's in the Mediterranean.
Yeah, but it's seriously, the other coastline runs down through Dalmatia, Croatia, and all the...
However, the Mediterranean peoples have very similar cultures, and where there's respect,
totally,
in the family, and appropriate discipline is used to guide the young people.
Would you say more young men than women, or both? I mean, appropriate discipline can be generic, right? Like,
there are different forms of discipline. I mean. Young males are
clear
pretty
boundaries,
stroppy.
Right? Enforceable boundaries, maybe.
Girls need different management, and this is where their mothers are so important.
And boys, and more
to boys
falls on the dad. You reckon a bit more?
Oh yeah, because boys from a very early age want to run around and hit balls and do all sorts of physical
and basically
things.
Disobey as many people authority as possible.
As they get older, yes. And they need to be brought in line to show respect to their elders, which is a good thing because it lasts. It goes down the lineage. And you get quality people.
Just to give you some insight on that, I know Armando, one of his sons, really quite well. He works in the business. Very stand-up kid, just really smart guy, on his way somewhere. And Sonny is young. I think it's his youngest. He's looking to get into business, but still studying. Like, they are driven young men, and as he said, he's trying to keep them out of the business so they can get some life experience. So when they come back to the business, you know, that he and his father have built a family and, you know, have perpetuated, they can offer something of value to build it rather than just...
Oh, yes. I've got to add to what you're saying, son. It's more than life experience. It's that they learn discipline in a business community.
Well, self-discipline's key to everything, right? Like,
you know, which is outside the nurturing or the possible nurturing aspect of the fathers or the family. And they have to prove themselves to other
in a different
people.
environment. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And once they've gained a certain level of respect and achievement, then they can migrate back into the business if they want to.
That's a good strategy, right?
They are bringing something
They've been toughened
other than
the outside world.
It's not nepotism.
No.
It's family supporting family.
All right, see if you can fly. Oh, you fell on the ground? That must hurt.
Exactly.
That's what you did to me.
Oh, yeah.
No, I quite happily jumped out of the nest myself.
Yeah, problem was the nest that you actually jumped into.
Oh, yeah. Jumped into another smaller nest. Started a new nest. Anyways.
It was interesting listening to a very successful man who.
Man, I have so much respect for March.
And so softly spoken. Sound values right from the beginning, values that he learnt from his parents when they worked so hard.
And he felt important enough to pass on to his kids.
Yes, and he's done a really wonderful job of doing it.
Yes, absolutely. And you know what? That's why I love that guy. He's amazing. Dad, it's such a great interview, and I hope we can continue to do many more of these. You need to relax now, get unpacked, sort yourself out, get some sleep, all right? Because I'm impressed that you've traveled so far. Just for the listeners who didn't catch up on the first bit, Dad was up here for Father's Day. We're hanging out on the beach in the middle of nowhere. He's with my daughter. He's with my friends. He's with his ex. They're all gallivanting around all together. I'm like, I took all these happy snaps. Maybe I'll share them on the socials. But it was a good time had by all. And then you got fucked around by Qantas on your way back. Oh, my God.
They eventually cancelled all my flight bookings.
You'd rebooked them all from the last cancellation, and they cancelled them again. Oh,
yes,
my God.
At 9 p.m. the night before. And
but there must have been something going on, industrial action or something.
There'll be an industrial action when they get my email, I can tell you that.
A firestorm coming in.
So I went from Port Macquarie in New South Wales via Brisbane to Melbourne.
I know. That's so funny. You went 500 k's the wrong direction to go to the Qantas lounge.
I didn't get a chance to be there because
you had to turn around
yeah, because it was gate 22 and we arrived in gate 1.
There we go.
And, you know, I'm about 105 years old. So,
that trailer loader isn't fast enough for you?
Yeah. No, look, you'll have to edit this, son. But
I'm not editing anything. This is where the gold happens.
It's not proper for this last bit to go out. Mm-hmm. But
bring it on.
I don't regard international flights as flights between Australia and New Zealand. It's just hopping over the pond. Mm-hmm. So my first international flight was in 1979 when I just hopped on a plane to Singapore. I was really gung-ho. I didn't even book a hotel or anything until I got there. And from 1979, in terms of international flights, there have been quite a lot. And what happened to me in the last 15 hours was the worst piece of crap that I have ever experienced. And even, okay, I haven't been to Outer Mongolia, but I'm sure if I had a flight on Outer Mongolia Airlines,
that would be better than Qantas going to Port Macquarie to Brisbane.
We can't name Qantas.
No, we can name and shame. That's all good. It's our podcast. Only one or two people listen to it. I think it's just me and you, to be honest. Me and him who listen to it.
Half of me.
Only me, actually. It's only one person. Dad, come on. You said you were going to listen to it. You can't just turn up and talk. You got to fucking listen and go, that's good, that's bad. Anyway, all right. I'll do the social media. No marketing, no worries. Well, look, as far as the interview series goes, we've had Tim, Kim, and March. What quality fucking individuals these guys are. Like, seriously.
Yeah, and there will be more.
Yeah, totally.
I'm going to try and contact a friend of mine. He's got a master's degree from Harvard.
That sounds like a good guest. That's what we want. We're going to market that shit.
Who I haven't been in contact with for a few years because he's very busy, but he does business mentoring and individual mentoring.
I need that guy, and we need that guy. Get him lined up, Dad. All right. Well, look, I'm going to let you get going, and what a great episode. I'm on a high from that. I'm now going to Paris for a while. I'll do another recording with you either over there or when I get back. I might even take the mic. Who knows? But you get relaxed and get rested, and I thought that was an amazing interview.
Well, I'll tell you what. Now that I put what Joe calls the car cover on.
Put this car cover on, yeah.
I feel a hell of a lot warmer.
Yeah. 8 degrees in Melbourne, ladies and gentlemen. Don't go to Melbourne. All right, stay in Port Macquarie where it's warm. Or in Paris, maybe.
Okay, now don't forget to heavily edit what we've just been discussing.
No, I'm editing everything. Like, I'm taking it right down to a full episode. Bye! The Me and Him podcast.